Welcome to the Patriot Perspective. My name is Gregory Lykov, and I'm joined here with my co-host Ofer Adar.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to September 20th edition of the Patriot Perspective. We have a lot of exciting news to get into today. We'll begin with Ilhan Omar, her censure vote in the House, and a scandal relating to her net worth. So there's a lot of things to scrutinize about her going forward. We'll look at Jimmy Kimmel and his suspension from ABC News, Trump's new executive order relating to H-1B visas. So there's a lot to get into today that I find to be rather interesting. And I think that you are really well placed to begin talking about Ilhan Omar's net worth because you've done a lot of really wonderful investigative reporting into Democrat politicians and the shady ways in which they've been able to amass a net worth in a very fast period of time. So run us down through that story.
Of course. So let's begin with just Ilhan Omar's scandals as a whole. We have seen that for the past probably 10 years, as since Ilhan Omar has been in the center of politics, we have seen that there has been scandal after scandal, whether it's her allegedly marrying her brother or her allegedly putting Somalia's interests before the United States interests. We have seen time and time again that she is not a congresswoman that any rational person would want in our US House of Representatives. So this specific story has to do with her net worth, which was around $50,000 when she entered Congress and currently is now amassed and has grown to over $40 million. Now, to get this story straight, we need to look at other Congress officials that have been in the same place as Ilhan Omar and has been in the center of attention. And that is why I want to reference Nancy Pelosi. So, Nancy Pelosi has a very obvious track record of insider trading. We have seen time and time again that her net worth has skyrocketed. She made 40,000, 50,000, then $40 million over a very short period of time from obvious insider trading. Now, Nancy Pelosi's husband is a venture capitalist who does a lot in the stock market, but that doesn't defeat from the whole entire purpose that you can't just make, you can't become a billionaire overnight. And that's basically what happened with Nancy Pelosi. Now, with Ilhan Omar, she also has a husband who is very much into stocks, very much into business. And that is why she allegedly has her increase in net worth. So I ask you, Ofer, do you think that these people, if they have husbands who are very obviously involved in business, do you think that this could contribute to some sort of insider trading ring that is going on in Congress, not just with Ilhan Omar, not just with Nancy Pelosi, but within the Democrat Party and within, the House as a whole?
Yeah. Well, it's good that you mentioned her husband because he's a venture capitalist. He was also a political consultant and had some businesses relating to cannabis and winery. But yeah, for the most part, his money comes from the investment business and all of the various venture capitalist firms that he would try to prop up. So there is a conflict of interest, and it's very important to look into the fact that there is a possibility that Ilhan Omar and perhaps many other congressmen and women did inform their spouses and their family members about certain bills that were going to be introduced or discussed in committees, certain events that they were informed about before the public. Those are all legitimate concerns, and they could have played a role in the fact that her net worth ballooned from, like you said, 50,000. She was a regular woman in 2019 who got sworn in, and she had student loans and everything. And then out of nowhere, she reaches 40 million within 6 years. It's very impressive from a neutral perspective, but it's not as impressive when you realize that she's in Congress and she may have leveraged her position to take advantage of the American people, quite frankly. So, yeah, there needs to be, we talked about this in earlier episodes, but far tighter regulations when it comes to stock trading. And I know that Ilhan Omar herself doesn't trade any stocks and she doesn't own any property to my knowledge, but it's always done through a loophole of the
Yeah.
family. That's what we have to investigate in this case.
Yeah, of course. There's no Congress of official that is dumb enough to own his own or her own stocks, other than Tom Suozzi. Tom Suozzi actually himself does do stock trading on the side. That's why he got in
Yeah.
a huge scandal for trading over $3 million worth of stock in like a 1 month period and just forgetting to report it, just not reporting it in Congress. And there was a big scandal. The House Committee Oversight Committee on this actually agreed that what Tom Suozzi did was intentional, but there were no penalties
Yeah.
taken because at the time of this, the Democrats actually controlled the House. So somehow, um, they were convinced not to press or pursue this as a more serious matter, which is not surprising. Anyways, if it was pursued as a serious matter, the most he would have gotten is a $200 fine. So, I mean, there's no concern here, and that's the big issue. But
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar, in particular, is a radical socialist congresswoman who is very pro anti rich people. So when you see that she herself is, making more money or has more money than probably, uh, every single American, like 99.99999% of Americans, that
Yeah.
is of concern. And not only that, when you see her actions and what she's taking, when you see she has a daughter at Columbia, if I'm not mistaken, who
Yeah.
participated in the protests. So they clearly have money. And this money didn't come from nowhere. And it came from her House of Representatives because when she entered Congress, she was poor. She was dirt poor. She had no money to her name. And now she is uh, one of the richest officials in Congress. So it's quite shocking. And I don't think people just get lucky. It doesn't happen. People get lucky when there's a reason for them to get lucky or when they cheat the system. And I think that's what happened here. So in general, I think the media needs to focus on this. We haven't seen the story enough. There has been very few, even on the right side of things, media focusing on this exact issue of insider trading. It needs to be,
Yeah.
brought to justice. We need to have much more stricter regulation, and the American people need to start discussing it because, frankly, we're getting robbed. We're getting robbed by both Republicans and Democrats who are practicing insider trading and having absolutely no second thoughts of it because there's no consequences.
Yeah, and that's just one in a long list of scandals associated with Ilhan Omar, even within this past week. Because if we look at it, and she was nearly censured by the House and had her committee assignments nearly removed. But due to four Republicans that voted with the Democrats, she was able to survive by the skin of her teeth. And so she was nearly censured because she went on this program with Mediasan, and they made extremely insensitive and frankly disgusting remarks relating to Charlie Kirk, talking about him being a stochastic terrorist, about his nod towards white supremacy and fascism,
It's
and then
very
also
ironic, very ironic.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And calling out Erica Kirk as she was mourning the loss of her husband. And so that just shows the type of woman that she is. She has no respect for her political opponents, but four Republicans had enough respect not to censure her, which I find to be completely disgusting. And by the way, one of them, Kerr Mills, who's supposed to be like a far right Republican, he did it because he was scared that the Democrats would go after him and censure him if he wouldn't abide by their will. And so that just shows how he has a complete lack of principles.
Yeah, definitely. And we have seen that Donald Trump has even commented on this because
Yeah,
Ilhan Omar, she's in forgive me for my language, but she's basically the terrorist of the house. I mean, she hates America, she hates American values. She doesn't
yeah,
work for America. She works for, I don't know, Somalia or whatever she believes in, and it's ridiculous. And the question is, how is she in power still? We have her in power, we have Rashida Tlaib, AOC in power. Now, thank God, we're not going to have Jamal Bowman in power anymore. But I mean, it's really concerning because we have people who are truly radicalized and people who are disgusting on every surface, who are Israel hating, Jew hating, America hating people, and they're still elected in power. That's my concern. But for there's a lot more scandals that we should dig deep associating with Ilhan Omar, and that involves how she actually got her citizenship. There's a lot of rumors that she had to marry her brother or legally marry her brother to get citizenship and be able to uh, become a citizen of the United States. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Maybe you could explain it a little bit better. And is Ilhan Omar actually a citizen of the United States legally if she did go about it illegally?
I'm pretty sure the story is, and this allegation popped up right when she was elected. Trump was one of the first people to talk about it in his first term. She married her alleged brother. I won't say that he is with full certainty because she disputes it. She says that they're not siblings, but there's this guy called Ahmed Nur Said Almi, and according to filings,
You pronounce
they
the
were. Yes, I tried to be culturally sensitive, and so they were allegedly in 2009 married for a short period of time, and that is what allowed individual to gain citizenship. So she was already a citizen, and she came via a resettlement program when she was young. I think she first settled in Virginia and then in Minnesota. And this, even though she was a citizen already, the fact that she committed immigration fraud,
Over, I'm sorry to cut you off. We just got
yeah,
breaking news that Maxine Waters has threatened to remove Trump from office. Breaking news. You know,
wow.
that is just shocking. I mean, sorry to cut you off. I just thought that would be important to share with the viewers.
Well, that's a story as old as time with her. You know, she's just a
Invoke the
perennial
25th
Trump
Amendment.
hater.
Invoke the 25th Amendment. Well,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off. Anyways, to continue.
Well, well, she's completely irrelevant, and I don't know why she isn't retiring. But Ilhan Omar, she has a bright future in politics because she's still very young, and so she allegedly married this guy in 2009. And even though she was a citizen already, because she's a naturalized citizen, because she committed immigration-based fraud, and it wasn't relating to her, but it was relating to somebody else, she can still have her citizenship revoked for that if it's proven true. So
Yeah.
that's why Trump is calling for her deportation. And if it's proven, then there's actually a very good case to actually go forward with it. And regardless, I think that on a moral level, she should just leave the country because she has zero concern for the average American. She cares for her ethnic enclave in Somalia that now is living in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and they have those community members. They have no homage, no respect for ancestral Americans, for this country. They hate the country. They hate all the ideology associated with it. They're just coming because they want to benefit from this location economically, and they want to take it over for their own benefits, and they don't even want to integrate successfully. So
E-
Ilhan Omar is just a perfect example of how rotten the immigration system is.
Yeah, and look, in general, I am very against, and actually one of the things I disagreed with Charlie Kirk, was his, his idea that Islam was incompatible with the West. I don't believe that. I believe radical Islam is incompatible with the West, and that's what these people are, are embracing. They're embracing an idea where, let's say, Israel is the state committing genocide. They're embracing the idea that Jews are the evildoers of the world. And that is not Islam. That is not a peaceful religion. That is not a religion at all. That is just hatred. That's what's incompatible with the West. So people have to start understanding that. And look, I don't wish hatred on anyone. I don't think that anyone should be, banned from coming into the United States because of their nationality or religion. But it has been proven that time and time again, we have seen people that come from radicalized countries like Somalia, like areas in the Middle East, are much more likely to commit terrorist violent acts against the United States than people from Europe, for example. And that's just because of where they're raised, where their environments are, their culture. They don't want to, embrace American culture. They want to continue their own ideals. They want to continue believing that Jews are evildoers of the world. And when we have those types of people who are now in Congress, they're sitting in Congress, and we're about
Yeah.
to seat one of those people as the mayor of New York City. When we have these people in power in the United States, it just shows that our country is going downhill on a path that is too fast for anyone to catch. So it's very concerning. And to be honest, I would be very happy to see Ilhan Omar get deported. It would be a spectacle. Like, I would go to the airport for that. I would be clapping. I would have a
Yeah.
celebration. So that would be really something. But realistically, that's probably not going to happen. But for now to move on. If anyone watched the news, we have seen that Jimmy Kimmel's show has been canceled indefinitely on ABC News. Now, the majority of Democrats are now accusing Trump for doing this, number one, and accusing for this to be a violation of the First Amendment. Now, to start off, why don't you give me a rundown of why Jimmy Kimmel's show actually got canceled? or canceled indefinitely, and what the left is actually saying about it.
Well, on his, I think it was on Monday. This is when it was recorded, but he had an episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live, and he said, as a matter of fact, and defamed the entire MAGA movement by saying that the shooter that murdered Charlie Kirk was MAGA, that he was a far right Republican. And he didn't say it as a joke or anything. He just said it in order to convince people and brainwash them into blaming the wrong side and to absolve the left of any responsibility. And so that was one of several things he said. He was similar in terms of his commentary, just like Ilhan Omar, when it comes to just like litigating his legacy and being really unfair when it comes to diagnosing like Charlie's ideology and what he believed. But yeah, it led to pushback from the ground up, not from the government, from us organically, from the people. People were concerned and they were calling on the broadcaster to shut down the show. And that's ultimately what happened. There's Nexstar, which is the affiliates, and there's also Sinclair Broadcasting. And so they pulled the plug on the show, and ABC complied. And so now the show is suspended indefinitely. And that has nothing to do with the government. What I don't like is that then Brendan Carr, who's the head of the FCC, stepped in and said that he would levy fines or he would threaten to levy fines if they didn't remove Kimmel, which
Yeah.
is something that's not needed right now because we already had the victory by having Kimmel suspended through organic means. There's no reason to impose that
And
on
it's
companies
very
through
difficult
the
from a
government.
realistic standpoint. He can't
Yeah.
do so. It's almost
Mhm.
impossible in that case
Yeah.
because again, the First Amendment does protect the people from the government, but it does not protect the people from the people. The people from the
Yeah.
people, are not protected, and that's why a private corporation could do whatever the hell they want to ensure. And to say that the reason why Nexstar Media canceled Charlie Kirk, I mean not Charlie Kirk, excuse me, Jimmy Kimmel, uh, it's not because they were pressured by the government. It's because they were pressured from the people, and that's obvious.
Yeah.
So, and just for reference, Nexstar Media is probably the biggest media corporation out there. They own everything. They own The Hill. They own I don't know, News Nation. That they're huge. So they this decision did not come lightly, and it did not come with government pressure. I don't think so, at least. So it's very important to note that. Now, to move on a little bit to why this is, this is such a tragedy for the left. Now, people are saying it's a violation of the First Amendment, that we're censoring Jimmy Kimmel. Over how much of this is true and how much of this is just complete lie? Like, just give me a rundown.
Well, since the FCC didn't actually implement any of their threats, for now, none of that is true. And I hope it stays that way. I think they may have realized they made a huge mistake by going on Benny Johnson's show and stating that publicly. But yeah, let's be honest. Jimmy Kimmel, he had to have his contract renewed, I think next year it was, and
Mhm.
he's making about 16 million per year, which is crazy. They're just hemorrhaging money, wasting so much on these late night shows. Same thing with Stephen Colbert on CBS, just complete waste of money. So they wanted to remove him either way. They're just looking for an excuse to remove him early because there's like a sort of like public beneficial clause where they can like terminate the contract early if he does something that's not in the public interest. So that's
Yeah.
what they're using to remove him in this case. So yeah, they're paying so much for the staff of like 100 people that are doing research and trying to come up with funny jokes and they can't even research correctly, or maybe they don't want to tell the truth about something. Either way, it's a complete waste of money. And now ABC News and all the other late night shows, they're getting removed because it's a money saving measure. That's clearly the interest here.
Yeah, definitely. And the only real late Tonight Show that is left is Jimmy Fallon, right? Jimmy Fallon's
Yeah,
Tonight
yeah.
Show, which is kind of like the traditional one. It's probably the biggest out of all of them, and probably the one that is still making money to an extent. It
And
is
the least political. It's not very
yeah,
political.
of course, it's the least political. I mean, it still is political, but it is like
Mm.
Jimmy Fallon at least is respected. He's not like he may not be liked by Donald Trump, but he's respected. But in general, like, do you think that this would mean that his late night show is also on risk of getting taken off, or do you think that he's still going to be staying around for some time?
I guess it depends on whether it's profiting. If it's not, then it's going to get removed sooner or later. Definitely, these
What
are for
a
profit
genius. I
companies.
mean, I don't know. Apparently, people don't think that that is a rational, thought. To remove a show if it's not profiting. But yeah, that's the situation we are in. And Ofer, in general, the left has a lot of talk about the Trump administration really expanding his reach and his power with trying to censor the left's thought. How much of this is true? Is Trump really trying to censor the left? Is he really, even with the Smithsonian Museum review, like let's say, is he trying to rewrite American history? Like, is he a tyrant? I mean, I don't know. This is what the left is trying to paint him as.
Well, he's the worst tyrant of all time because every single major initiative he tries to pass through executive action gets stopped in the courts, and then he has to fight for years through injunctions and through appeals processes to get it passed. And by then, if it does remain, then obviously it's illegal and there's nothing wrong with what he's doing. But either way, no, he does not have ubiquitous authority over this country, and even if he wanted to, it's not possible. So he's the worst king of all time by that metric. But yeah, he did designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, and that's something that a lot of people are complaining about because they're saying Antifa is just an idea that it's not a actual organization that can be targeted, but actually you have something called the Torch Network, which is this
Hmm.
network of these decentralized chapters across the country, including Rose City Antifa, and then in
Yeah.
Oakland, in all these other cities across the country, you have the local chapters of Antifa that organize protests, and they have a merch store, they have a website. These are real groups that can be targeted
A
with
merch
real leaders.
store.
Yeah, they have a merch store. They make
Did you
money.
buy some? How do you know?
I look through the website and it's on the
Oh,
merch
okay, okay.
section, so that's why.
I'll make sure to look through it and buy some merch too. But in general, you're 100% right. And also, Antifa is not only Antifa as in the name Antifa. There's 100 different organizations that believe in the same ideology, associate with Antifa. And the goal of the Trump administration is to target those organizations too, because it doesn't start with Antifa. I mean, it doesn't stop with Antifa, it starts with it. So if you're an organization who is endorsing a terrorist organization, that in itself makes you a terrorist organization too. So, all of these Justice for Jihad Palestine organizations, which we see everywhere, if they endorse Antifa, which many of them do, will also become terrorist affiliated groups. And that's what we have seen, especially with the BDS movement in the United States and Canada, where a lot of BDS movements, organizations, I'm really blanking on the name right now, but I'm thinking of one in particular, basically were called terrorist affiliate groups because they were contributing monetarily to a terrorist organization. So, I think that's the goal, but we have seen a lot of talk over the Muslim Brotherhood and whether that's going to be named as a terrorist organization. So, Ofer, why don't you explain what the Muslim Brotherhood is and if you actually believe that it qualifies as a terrorist organization or as an adversary of the United States?
Oh yeah, definitely. The Muslim Brotherhood is 100% a terrorist organization. It was created in 1929 based on the teachings of Sayyid Qutb. He was this Islamic scholar from Egypt who talked about reviving the Sunni Islamic faith and fighting back against Western imperialism and spreading Islam across the Muslim nations. So his ideology has permeated into the West because obviously in recent years, Muslim immigrants have come to the United States and they have set up chapters in London, in Washington, across the entire Western world of the Muslim Brotherhood. They're trying to open up Sharia courts. They're trying to spread these certain halal certifications into various businesses. So, like, they are trying to influence, first of all, their own communities to ensure that they remain completely in line with Islamic doctrine and with the teachings of the Quran and the Hadiths. But again, it's certainly backed by terrorist groups. Like they are affiliated with Hamas, they're affiliated with Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and in Turkey and in various other countries in the Sunni world that are extremists and have taken violent action in the past. And it's the worst in the UK. In the UK, it's absolutely a disgrace. You have all of these Muslim Brotherhood affiliated people in local government that are taking over. And just keep in mind, they don't care at all for a second about regular British people, regular
Of
Americans.
course.
They just care about their own community and their own religious teachings and furthering that. And that's the main problem with the mass migration that we're seeing
Yeah.
right now.
And a lot of people are saying that, everyone cares about their own religion. Everyone cares about their own people. But the
Yeah,
difference with the Muslim Brotherhood is that they emphasize spreading their religion, spreading their teachings, and that's the big concern that they are not assimilating into the society. They want others to assimilate into their society.
yeah,
And when it becomes to that extent, it's scary because the more people that are going to be uh, associated with this, the more of a threat it is going to be towards normal people. Now, again, I want to reiterate I have no issue, no matter what your religion is, no matter what you believe, no matter how you eat, like whether you're Jewish, Muslim, I don't know, Hindu, I couldn't care less. What I care is if you put that stuff on me or if you put, your religion in my mouth, how I put it. So that's really what is happening, and especially the UK has seen it more than ever before. That's why we have seen millions of people go on the streets and protest against it. Even France is seeing the exact same thing and has been for
yeah,
years because of the amount of mass immigration and illegal immigration that is coming into those countries from African countries, like Somalia, for example. So that is a big issue that especially Europe is facing, and now the US is finally seeing the effects of it. But it's again very similar to the entire thing with Ilhan Omar. So, like, what I would ask a supporter of Ilhan Omar is what has been one thing she has done for the benefit of US society or the United States people? And the answer for that is nothing. She has not done one thing that benefits the United States. And it just goes to show that these people are not for benefiting our country, they're for benefiting themselves. And that is a big issue. We don't want people like this in our country. And they're never going to assimilate into people. So I don't know. It's scary because so many people on the left are embracing these ideas, and anti-Semitism in general has been an issue both on the left and right for a long time, and especially on the right, it's becoming right now more prevalent with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or or I don't know, so it's becoming more prevalent on the right, but on the left, it's just getting to the point where every single person is like a complete anti-Semite who couldn't care less about American culture either. So
yeah,
it's concerning, and it's good that the Trump administration is taking action. I want to see the Muslim Brotherhood be next after
yeah,
Antifa, and definitely, the PLO is already considered a terrorist organization, but we're not enforcing it. People are sponsoring the PLO, and they're walking free on the streets. That shouldn't be happening. So it all of this is a big issue. And look, I'm not even talking from a pro-Israel stance, anti-Israel stance. I'm just talking from an American stance. And it's clear that people
yeah,
who think that American citizens should not be able to freely practice their religion, should not be able to freely practice or walk in the streets, no matter what their race or gender orientation is. If people like this are in our country and influencing it, that's not a good thing, and everyone should realize that.
yeah. And that's just one facet of immigration. Of course, another very important facet of immigration is what's going on right now with H-1B visas and Trump's executive order that we're going to get into now in relation to that program.
I
So
got so
Trump,
excited when I saw this. This was like a
yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody that I know was just extremely excited to see this initiative. People that, they want to go into upper education and they want to get into high skill job in IT, for instance, they're not able to do so because you have every single year between 65 to 85,000 people, mainly from India, coming in and getting those slots. And it's supposed to be a slot open if there are no American jobs. There are no Americans that can fulfill that job. But for the most part, you do have Americans that are willing to do these jobs, but they're not selected because these big companies in big tech, like Amazon, like Google, and like Intel, they prefer to go to the Indians and sometimes Chinese that are willing to work for less. They're willing to have less time off. They're willing to receive less benefits, and they're dependent on their company that sponsors them. And
yeah,
so they can't
that's a big
ever,
thing.
yes, they can never negotiate in good faith. They always have to abide by the terms and conditions of the company because then it could get revoked. Their sponsorship can get revoked. So that's the huge problem with the H-1B visa program. And Trump is trying to mitigate the harmful effects on high skilled American workers by ensuring that it actually goes to high skilled foreigners by requiring companies to pay a $100,000 fee or commission to sponsor any applicant that may be coming in through the lottery system of the H-1B visa program. So, what are your thoughts on his decision?
Yes. So first off, this is wonderful, and I don't think that should be a $100,000 thing. I think it should be a $300,000 thing. First off,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
and this should have been taken a long time ago. It protects American workers. Now, it's not going to be beneficial towards American business. I think that a lot of American businesses like Google, big tech giants are going to struggle from it just because it's obvious. Like there's a huge advantage over foreign workers rather than domestic. They're just cheaper in general, and again, reliant on the company to live in the United States. So it's a much bigger deal. But I also think that like look at the IT market as you brought up right now,
yeah,
or like you see those videos all over online social media where people are racing like thousands at a time for like a 5-person interview. So
yeah,
it's not even shocking that like that this is such a big issue because we're having thousands of immigrants come in from other countries, which again I like immigrants, but not when they're taking jobs from American people. Um, and we do have a shortage of those jobs. We have a shortage of high paying quality jobs that Americans could
yeah.
get, and this is directly imposed on to make sure that this shortage is mitigated. Now, I'm going to go to my first point on why I think it should be higher than $100,000
Yeah,
because these jobs that are competitive, high paying jobs that are base salaries at like $120,000 a year, if not more, like $100,000 is not a lot for these people, for these companies. If it's more than $100,000, if it's like $300,000, maybe they will reconsider. But in general, this will also increase the amount of revenue the United States is making. So this is
yeah.
just so good on every single face that you try to paint it. I wonder how the liberals are going to paint this as bad, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I'm just so happy this was the right action to take, and it should have been done many, many years ago.
Absolutely. So we saw in 2024 and 2025 that big tech giants and other major companies like Tesla, like Apple, and like Nvidia, they laid off tens of thousands of native born American workers and then immediately replaced them with H-1B hires,
Yeah,
which is counterintuitive to the entire point of the program.
of
The entire
course.
point of the program is that if there's a vacancy that American workers can't fill, then you bring in somebody from abroad. But what's happening is you had Indian immigrants that infiltrated into the hiring teams, and they are naturally going to be nepotistic, and they have hired people from their own country, people they may even know. And then they are trapped in those company situations for 3 to 6 years, and it's so beneficial to the companies because they can pay way less. The base salary for H-1B visas right now is 60,000, and most people, as let's say a regular American, if they're going to work in Silicon Valley and in big tech, like you said, they're going to get paid 110,000, 120,000 at the beginning. So it's a huge scam, and now it's getting cracked down on. We had 600,000 to 700,000 H-1B visa holders in the United States as of 2025, and those are nearly 1 million job vacancies that could be filled by high skilled American workers. We
Yeah.
have hundreds of thousands of Americans that are going to top universities and they want to become people that are involved in IT, that want to code. We have these people. It's not that we're going to be completely vacant or dormant if we get rid of these Indian and Chinese people that are coming in for a short period of time. We have people that will fill these jobs, but they're going to demand more. They're going to demand something that actually they deserve. And companies naturally, they don't like that. But too bad. We're putting America first now. And this is what Trump's doing. And I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, well, very well said. And to add on to that point, it's already very hard to get an H-1B visa if you're an immigrant, just because there's so many immigrants applying for them. So it's already hard. It's not like it's
Yeah.
easy. It's not like you're just immediately going to get it. And that's important to say. But in general, while we should be encouraging people to come into this country if they're going to contribute to it in a proper way, like getting a job in IT or something, when Americans themselves can't get those jobs, that's when the issue comes. And under the Trump administration, the second one, it was the first time in a decade that native born Americans have been less unemployed and
Yeah.
gaining more, high paying jobs than immigrants from other countries. And that just goes to say that what Trump is doing is actually working. And it's not against immigrants. I don't believe Trump is against immigrants. I think he's pro immigration, but he is pro America first. And it is very important to show that. Now, there's also an epidemic of people coming into the United States, either working, getting trained in the United States, and then working in India or China. It goes
Yeah.
very similar with people, let's say, applying to Harvard or other schools in the United States just to get the education, but then going back to their home country, mainly because if you are educated from Harvard in China, you get paid much more than a normal person does.
Yeah.
So, Ofer, how can this be mitigated? Because we definitely don't want other countries to be, you know, getting resources from the United States, especially when we are giving, foreign students student loans, which a lot of schools of these schools are, which to me is crazy. So how can we mitigate this to make sure that this is not happening?
Yeah, so apparently in executive order signed by Trump, he's going to revoke the H-1B visas of holders that are currently not living in the United States. So that's an extremely beneficial move, and it will affect thousands of people that may have returned back, that made their money, and now they're back in India, and they have higher purchasing power. So that's to be enforced. That's going to be a really huge development. Now, it's true, we need to reduce the amount of F1 visas. Those are the student visas that are given to international students. And Trump talked about, and so did Lutnick, about letting in 500,000 of these Chinese students into the country. So I'm completely against that. And I hope that does not happen 100%. There are many other non-citizenship visas that have to be looked at, like the EB2 visa, the EB3 visa, and then those are for skilled workers. Then for non-skilled workers, you have other types of visas like the L1 and the TN, and that's
Yeah.
like related to agriculture and hospitality. All of those have to be scrutinized to see if they're taking jobs away from American
Which
workers.
are much less than, let's say, an IT or the H1 visa. It just is because
Yeah, yeah.
agriculture is much less desirable than an IT job that pays you like 6 grand. I mean, not six,
Yeah,
six figures.
if you're
So
looking at the problem with H1Bs, it extends past it. There's also HB2s, and as I said before, EB2, EB3. Those are the main problems. Then you have the EB1, which is for like geniuses, people that are Nobel laureates, and I support that. Obviously, I want them to come to the United States. Like that's actually legitimate,
yeah,
but it's only
okay,
like 40,000 per year, and that's at a maximum.
yeah.
But we're looking at hundreds of thousands of people that are coming in to these IT jobs every year via various programs, including the family visas. And that's another big problem that we
Yes.
have to stop.
Yeah, and a lot of another issue which we talk about, Ilhan Omar and her relationship with her brother. A big issue is that people are like scamming the marriage system too. They're getting
Yeah.
citizenship or getting a visa to come into the United States because they're married to an American citizen. There's an entire market in the United States about this where people are
Mhm.
basically paid $5,000 to get married for like a month or two. And this needs to be very, very highly scrutinized because if we're having a sitting member of Congress who went through this process, then there's an issue going on in the United States. But something I do think that the Trump administration should be enforcing also. I don't know if he will be able to, but foreign students in general, if they actually get a visa to come into the United States and study, should be paying much more than a regular student in the United States.
Yeah.
So more than that actual tuition. Not only should they not get financial aid, they should pay more. And the reason I say that is because the government subsidizes a big sort part of the tuition that we pay. So even if you pay the full, I don't know, $75,000
Yeah.
a year to go to Columbia, you are still being subsidized by the government through the government's endowment to the university. Now, the government isn't signing up to sponsor foreign students; they're sponsoring Americans. So if my tuition is the same as a foreign student, but I'm also paying taxes to the government to subsidize my education, then it's not fair because in turn I'm paying more to the university than a foreign student is. So there should be a separate foreign tuition rate for every single university that should be, I don't know, 25% or some sort of percent higher, however much the government is subsidizing, because it is not fair to have a university give a lower tuition rate to a foreign student, because that's really what's happening here.
Yeah, 100%. And there definitely should be tighter regulations on what those students do afterwards. They should have some sort of stipulation where they work in the US. And then as a result, we give them education, which is going to be very beneficial and will give them a lot of standing in the future, but they should return the entire payment via working for us
Yeah,
and benefiting our economy and working in the United States.
yeah.
So that's also something that can be considered, but I do think as a whole it should be reduced. Definitely, the admission process is very cluttered right now, and it's very difficult to get into some of these
And it's
elite
much
universities.
easier to get in as a foreign student because schools like
Yeah,
foreign
yeah,
students. They like
it
people
is
who
so
had,
much easier.
yeah, different experiences. Like, let's say if I applied to, I don't know, like if I applied to Harvard as a student
Yeah,
from Uganda, then I will,
yeah,
like, I do not have anywhere near as good grades, as good of a resume to get into Harvard as, let's say, a normal person does. But if I applied as a Uganda student, I could put like my entire life savings on there that I would get in because of just who I am. So
yeah,
that's a big issue. And look, I feel for these students. These students in Uganda, for example, are coming here for the sole reason to get a better education, to get a better life, and to increase their financial situation, their economic, mobility. And I respect that. And if the United States was at a position to give them that opportunity, I would be all for that. But the reality is that the United States is nowhere near that position. We are struggling as a country.
yeah,
We are not benefiting right now. We are not great. We are not great at all. And that is the issue. We need to put America first and then we could help others. And, just to
yeah,
remind everyone of what America has done in the future to help I mean, in the past, to help other countries, I want to bring up the Green Revolution, which I'm sure over they're familiar
yeah,
with, but it's basically when the United States solved world hunger and solved world hunger by introducing GMOs. And whatever your opinion is on GMOs, at the end of the day, it made food much cheaper globally.
yeah.
And
Amazing.
in general, I'm bringing this specific example up because it just shows that the developments and that the advancements that the Western world has had has helped the third world a lot. And it's not like America is not helping anyone. America is helping others, but they're helping themselves first because without America first, America fails. And when America fails, the entire world fails. And that's what people have to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned GMOs. I'm a GMO enthusiast after all.
I know.
Um,
That's why. Why do you think I brought it up?
the GMO revolution of the 90s and the early 2000s, it literally reduced the amount of short-sightedness and blindness in Vietnam by like 100%. Like it
Yeah.
solved their entire problem in relation to blindness. Like it cured the
Look
issues
at
relating to
Africa.
rice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look
yeah,
at,
yeah.
I mean, it's insane what, like,
They're producing
I,
food at scale, like in
yeah.
mass production. It's amazing. So hunger is going down significantly, and that's an American invention. So massive credit to the United States for that.
And Ofer, I know you're gonna be really, iffy on this point, but I'm a big fan of GMOs. I love them.
I am
Uh,
too. Yeah.
really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, being serious, actually. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. But I love GMOs. I think what they did to the world
Yeah.
is wonderful. And I know there's a lot of talk on the negative effects, and I'm sure there's some sort of negative effects of GMOs, but
Yeah. Yeah.
we have solved world hunger with GMOs. And
Mhm.
I don't say that as it's not an extreme. No, world hunger is literally solved because of GMOs. We had real
Yeah.
hunger in the past. We had places where there was no food. Now we consider the situation in Gaza as the worst starvation in history, where they
Yeah.
get 3 meals a day and their obesity rate is still 67%. So if that's the worst, that we have on this planet, I'm really happy. But really, I think what America has done for the third world countries is
Yeah.
wonderful. And I could talk about GMOs all day. I love them. Um, it's so weird to say that, but in general, I truly think the green revolution of the 90s and what America has done for the rest of the world has completely changed everything. Like, if like I can't be thankful enough. So
Yeah.
I think that this has to do a lot with the situation on immigration, and maybe if the United States begins to focus on itself more, we could continue developing as a society, and maybe we will solve, I don't know, world conflict next. We never know, but anything is possible with the United States.
Yeah. And just as a final note on the immigration issue, Trump also recently revoked the protection status of Syrian refugees in the United States. about 4,000 of them. So there are 50,000 Syrian refugees, and about 4,000 were legally protected. A lot of them are going to go back now, especially after the regime change that occurred in December. So that's many things that is currently being done in order to change our current arrangement in immigration that is
Yeah.
completely unfair to the average American.
Of course, and the situation in Syria is horrible right now still. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm actually a big supporter of Trump giving refugee status to the Druze. I think that that needs to be done. What the Druze are going through in Syria, Lebanon, and really every other country other than Israel is like horrible. They have been genocided for and in general their culture is very different from, the Muslim Brotherhood, for example. They're very pro America, very pro
Yeah.
Israel. So I would like to see Trump give expedited processes for immigration for the Druze. I think that's very important. Excuse me.
I would say if there's any group that actually would warrant an immigration, I suppose, fast track, it would probably be the Afrikaners in South Africa. Like
Yeah,
they'd be most eligible based on the cultural link between the United Kingdom and the Netherlands, and then how they were able to settle the United States 400 years ago, and the fact that they are persecuted due to their race, and the
really,
fact that they
because
are
the
willing.
left, the New York Times doesn't think so.
Well, when the leader of the economic freedom fighters, Julius Malema, shouts "kill the Boer," yeah, maybe that's something metaphysical. He's not talking about actually killing people. That's what the mainstream media claims. But if we're being honest with ourselves, we
Yeah.
all know what that means. And so I would completely support bringing them in. And if there is something relating to agriculture that they can do, something that
They're also
they
very
can,
smart. I mean, they they
yeah,
they they have like their ancestral like roots come from the Western world already,
yeah,
and
yeah,
they're already kind of assimilated, and that's what you really want to look
they love the
for.
country. Yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah,
genuinely love America, so they could benefit a lot. And also in South Africa, they like we spoke about GMOs, but they actually played a huge role in the farming of South Africa, agriculture of
yeah,
South
yeah.
Africa, and a big reason of why South Africa actually became a country that was really considered a third world country, which is now more of a first world developed country. Definitely, probably the most developed out of all of Africans nations. Maybe Egypt is more developed than South Africa, but really
Yeah, Egypt.
now. South Africa is a really a first world country because of the Afrikaners and what they have done for agriculture. It's really wonderful. I mean, it's very
Yeah,
interesting to learn about. So I respect them a lot, and the persecution that they're going through right now is horrible.
yeah, and as a final note on this, the white settlers in Zimbabwe, they were largely expelled by Mugabe, who was the
Yeah,
dictator of Zimbabwe. And then what happened? The Africans that took over the government and all the farmers that had no idea how to plant crops and grow food. There was a massive famine as a result because they kicked out these white farmers. And there was massive inflation as well because they didn't know how to manage the economy.
yeah.
So they can complain as long as they want about the apartheid, which had problems, but they lived better under it than they do now. And they blamed and scapegoated an entire community that could have helped them out. So
Yeah.
it's their loss in the end.
Of course. And in general, it like the racial divide within these communities. It's not only like a white on black people, it's really a racial divide for both of them. The blacks hate the whites and the whites hate the blacks. And now it the tables have turned obviously in South Africa, but it's
Yeah,
disgusting because this is like a nation that could really be a very successful nation which has the potential. It has a wonderful location. South Africa is a beautiful country. Everything about it
it
is
is. Yeah.
perfect other than the politics. And that is why
Yeah.
it just devastates me when I, hear about this.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think we should end on that note
Yeah.
and very important to discuss. And so thank you guys so much for your time. And please like and subscribe to the channel,
Yeah.
follow on all social media,
Thank you
and we'll
guys
see you guys
for the,
later.
increased viewership we have been noticing. Rumble, we love you guys.
Yeah.
Everyone there. Yeah, thank you guys. And we will see you next time on the Patriot Perspective. Thank you.